Okay, this was a do-over. I want to welcome everyone back to the Monday night LifeVantage National Webinar. Totally had a glitch. I want to certainly apologize to each and every one of you, but I'm hoping we get Dr. Neil Goodman back on and Dr. Sean McKee back on. My name is Gabe Pearson, and I want to welcome each and every one of you to our webinar. A little brief background, just been with LifeVantage 10 years. It's been an incredible journey. Spent 30 years in the fitness business, never ventured into the network marketing arena, never endorsed a product in those 30 years. And this company, LifeVantage, literally has changed me and my family's life. I am just waiting on our docs to get on. I'm gonna just go ahead and start reading their bio, and I'm just hoping they get on by the time I get finished. Our first doc, who is our guest tonight, she's a double boarded certified internal medicine, anti-aging, regenerative medicine doctor. She went to school at UNC Medical School. She's been practicing for over 20 years, and she is on our scientific advisory board. Please welcome Deb Viglione. Deb, how are you?
I'm great.
Thank you so much for being on. I apologize for the glitch. Our next guest tonight is double board certified neuroradiologist. She is a two-time Ironman triathlete, ultra marathoner. She's a former scientific advisory board member and a former field advisory board member. Please welcome Dr. Sean McKee. Sean?
Thanks, Gabe. I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited about tonight.
Apologize for the glitch. And lastly, our last guest we have is 14-year veteran. He was a major in the U.S. Army Medical Corps. He's board certified pediatrics and adolescent medicine, chief of pediatrics with the Southeast Georgia Health System. He's one of the newest appointees to our scientific advisory board. Please welcome Dr. Neil Goodman. Dr. Goodman, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Gabe. Thank you so much for having me join you tonight.
Well, thank you so much. Folks, I tell you what, it's been an incredible 10 years. When I started with this company, only thing that I really had to understand was something called oxidative stress. And then a couple of years later, it was the activation of this pathway called NRF2. And then that activator had a brother or a sister, an NRF1 pathway, and now we just added another pathway, our NAD product line. So this is really getting serious, and I couldn't think of three better docs to be on tonight to kind of walk each and every one of us through this history of LifeVantage, and what's replacing supplementation is something called activation. And it's the activation of the NRF2 pathway, the activation of the NRF1 pathway, and now we have our new product, an NAD product. So this is exciting stuff. So Dr. Viglione, let's start with you. Why don't you just kind of help the viewing and listening audience, what is Protandim NRF2?
Okay, I guess, Sean, you're going to do NRF1.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did Sean?
Yeah, let Sean do it. Okay.
Yeah, 'cause I know you're prepared for NRF1. Sean.
Okay.
Just kind of walk everyone through that.
Wonderful. Well, it's the product that I fell in love with over 7 years ago when my doctor told me about it. I had been looking for kind of an upstream unifying theory of why the body doesn't feel good after a certain time, a certain age, really, and what can make it feel better. And I had been reading through, scientific journals and also lay journals like, the sports nutrition, etc., trying to find the very thing that would, kind of be the magic bullet. I knew that it was out there in God's world, right? God put all these plants and herbs on the earth for our use, for our benefit. And I knew there was something out there, and I had been trying to find it. And I was actually adding things to my quote unquote anti-aging regimen that my doctor had prescribed every time I would read about something new. And I went back to see her after 6 months, and she said, "How you doing?" I said, "I hate taking that many pills." And that's when she said the magic words. It really changed my life when she told me about this. She said there is something that actually is proven to reduce oxidative stress by 40% on average in 30 days in everyone who takes it. And they have real peer-reviewed published studies on the product on PubMed. I was like, you had me at hello. And I knew what oxidative stress was because my coach, my CrossFit coach, called me the oxidizer, because I would do a CrossFit class before 6 a.m. and I would go run 18 miles before going to work, right? So I was absolutely thinking, yeah, I'm the oxidizer. I breathe a lot of oxygen. But then I started to think about it like, ooh, that kind of means rusting, right? Oxidation means rusting. And so when my doctor told me we could take that out of the equation by 40% on average in 30 days, and even more after 90 days, I was like going to take it for the rest of my life. I'm going to force feed it to my husband and my dog, give it to my parents, give it to my grandparents, because oxidative stress is why our cells malfunction. It's why we get things that occur with our each passing decade. We get things in itises and oses and isms that we don't have in our 20s. We get them in our 30s. We get them in our 40s. We get more of them in our 50s and 60s. And it's just uncomfortable and unpleasant. So when you address the underlying cause of all the things that go wrong after age 20, the body starts to work better. So what we are exposed to on a daily basis in our world is, natural oxidation from food that we eat and air that we breathe. We process them, we produce energy, we produce byproducts called free radicals. Well, there's more than just the food and the air that we eat and breathe. We're exposed to toxins on a daily basis, especially in today's modern world. We're not just exposed to, the sun and pollution, but we're exposed to, people smoking nearby us and toxins that are maybe in our cleaning products and, air fresheners and endocrine disruptors and, just stress from running and being tense and having to deal with, bad light in an office and all kinds of things. And of course, the, natural processes like injury and physical stress from working out. So all of these things actually create more oxidative stress, and our body needs to deal with it. And our body is able to deal with it very well when we're under 20 because we're making a lot of the good guys. But after age 20, the rheostat, I call it the dimmer switch that turns on these good guys, that gets down regulated over time. It gets less and less sensitive and less active. It sits in this dimmer switch I'm talking about is the NRF2 protein. It sits in the cytoplasm, which is in the cellular goo of the cells, not the nucleus, it's not the powerhouse, it's just the goop in the middle. And it sits there and it's sensing for these stressors. And then when it hears and sees a stressor or feels a stressor, it goes into the nucleus and rings the alarm bell. Make the good guys, make the good guys, make the good guys, to take out the trash like they did when you were younger. But that sensitivity gets turned down and our bodies can actually have it turned on again. And there are things that you can eat that will turn it on, but we just happen to find a needle in a haystack by a blend of 5 herbs that have been used in human health for centuries that turns on this dimmer switch to the optimal way, that the same level that it was when we were in our 20s and healthy and able to deal with the stressors of life. So that has changed my life. It's changed the life of my families, my dogs, everyone. And we are so much healthier because we have activated our NRF2 pathway, and it's absolutely life-changing. So what I love is that the company doesn't just stop there. I mean, that was the only product that we had besides a topical NRF2 activator for years and years. But because oxidative stress damages all tissues, all organs, all proteins, all lipids, those delicate micro or organelles that are in our cells, that are the powerhouse of the cells, that are actually the source of the energy and therefore the source of the free radicals, they get damaged too. And Dr. Viglione, I believe, is going to talk about that. I don't know if you're going to come back, Gabe.
You want me to go ahead and start?
I am. It's been an absolute fascinating journey, just literally watching, the science, behind this product. Dr. McKee, when I started with LifeVantage, there was only 1 patent and there was only 3 peer-reviewed published studies. Can you just kind of elaborate a little bit more before I go to Deb on how many patents does this NRF2 Protandim have now, and what kind of studies are we looking at?
Wow, that's true. When I first started taking this, we had 9 published peer-reviewed studies. I think when you started, it was 3, but when I found out about it, it was 9. And then the next month, there was the 10th study that was published. The next month, the 11th and 12th were published. It was absolutely phenomenal. And I think 4, 5, 6 months later, the 13th and 14th studies were published. And it's just gone on from there. Now there are 29 published peer-reviewed studies, 26 of which are available for you to look at, review, print out, read on PubMed.gov. And that's the National Institute of Health repository. It's a National Library of Medicine. It's actually hosted by the NIH. So your tax dollars and mine support that. And I think there are 13 patents. We have 7 US and 6 international, plus 1 on the skincare. And there's several others that are patent pending, because what we do is something nothing else does. We actually increase the body's ability to make more of the good guys. We're not supplementing with antioxidants, which is the old school way of fighting these free radicals. One antioxidant molecule neutralizes one free radical and you eliminate it, right? Well, what we're doing instead is we're upregulating the body's own innate antioxidant and anti-inflammatory enzymes and proteins that are millions of times more effective than direct antioxidants, and that's a game changer. That's why we have all these patents. It's why we have universities independently initiating and funding studies on these products, or this particular product, Protandim NRF2 Synergizer, because it does something nothing else does in a very unique way and actually dramatically impacts people's health.
Well, I tell you what, folks, I know a lot of what Dr. McKee just said is high level stuff, but to kind of bring it down a little bit, basically what she's telling us is taking antioxidants are now going to be a thing of the past, because having your body make them, it's safer, it's a better tool, and it's more efficient. So when you take them, you kill one bad guy. When you have your body make them, you kill 1 million bad guys. So what team do you want to be on? You want to be on the one and done team or the 1 in 1 million team? So hopefully all of you start to understand the impact of what Dr. McKee was talking about. It's absolute fascinating science, getting your own body to do its own work, what your body was meant to do for the first 20 years of life, and that's make more good guys. Okay, few years later, Protandim NRF2, receives a cousin, a brother, a sister, however you want to look at it. And now there is another pathway that we've been able to activate. And I'll have Dr. Deb Viglione kind of walk you through with that pathway, NRF1. Deb? Wow. Well, welcome to the world of technology. I'm glad it's just not only me. I tell you what, we have Dr. Neil Goodman.
I'll be happy to pipe in if you want me to help out there, Dave.
He's my on deck batter. Okay. So.
Oh, there she is. There's Deb. Hey, Deb. I don't know if Deb's got audio.
Hey, I'm back. Sorry, my computer went dead. I've had it plugged in, but I kind of pulled it out of the wall. So now I'm on my phone. Can you hear me or see me?
Well, let's just kind of walk everyone through that. What is the NRF1 pathway? Tell everybody about Protandim NRF1.
Okay, well, let me back up a little bit. I'm in the clinical world and I'm seeing people, and the most common complaint I get is, I'm tired, doc. I'm tired. I'm fat. My brain doesn't work right. I have brain fog. And so that's a huge deal. And I was giving supplements, trying to give people more energy by giving mitochondria more gasoline to help them work. And I like to think of the mitochondria as the engine that runs the body. Now, I know we think, okay, the brain runs the body, the heart, because it's a pump, runs the body, but inside every cell is a mitochondria, and that's the engine. That gives you the power, the energy. It drives everything. The brain and the heart have the most, because obviously they do the most work and they expend the most energy. So was trying to help people get more energy and feel better, because we lose these mitochondria as we get older. Now, Dr. McKee was talking about oxidative stress. Well, like a car, when it's running, it puts off exhaust, right? Well, the exhaust that a mitochondria puts off are free radicals. So the mitochondria are actually damaging themselves with their own exhaust. So if we didn't have the NRF2 pathway, we'd all die because our mitochondria would die. So the NRF2 helps the mitochondria stay alive by getting rid of their waste. All right, so what we are doing with LifeVantage is not what I was previously doing, where I was just giving supplements to try to make the mitochondria work better. We actually have ongoing studies at the University of Colorado that are very promising, showing that we're actually increasing the mitochondrial DNA. That means we're making more. We're also repairing the ones we have. This is groundbreaking. Nobody is doing this. And from a clinical standpoint, I had NRF2 and used that for about 2.5 years in my clinic. You know, wonderful results, but a lot of the problems I had was getting the waste out of the body, because NRF2 is wonderful in trying to get rid of the plastics, the heavy metals, you know, the pesticides in your body. But if you don't have the energy to get that trash out, it'll bog up in your cells and you can actually feel worse, and you have to go slower and do some things. Well, when the NRF1 came out and I'd start that dual synergizer, people got better much quicker. I was afraid I'd get more complaints since I was giving them more ingredients, but in fact, I didn't get any calls. People would come in 30 days later, say, "Doc, man, I am feeling so much better." Because when you get that trash out of the body and you're making more ATP, that's the energy that we make, people feel better. This is huge. There is no other product out there that does what we do, because we are activating our body and not supplementing. And then I guess that's about all I have to say, unless you have questions. But what is so profound now about the new Protandim NAD is I feel, I like to use an analogy, it's the gasoline now that's going into that engine to make that mitochondria work. And Neil can talk about that more.
So Dr. Viglione, basically to help the layperson out there, so I guess, you know, as we age, you know, naps are a little bit, people are more willing to take them because energy levels coming down, right? So basically, what you're telling us is, as we age, we have less and less ATP. Is that is that the energy that we had an abundance of when we were kids?
Absolutely. You know, we lose it as we get older. And, you know, we kill off some of the mitochondria just with the oxidative stress they cause. But just, you know, as you get older, you lose them and they become dysfunctional. And Gabe, what the scariest part is, at my conferences now, they're citing mitochondrial dysfunction as the leading cause of cancer transformation in a cell. Because when the cell loses its ability to make energy, it either dies or it can mutate into a cancer cell. So we really want to keep our mitochondria strong and healthy.
So to help everybody understand, I want people to really understand. So NRF2 is basically reducing, you know, how and why we age on a cellular level, and a major contributing factor of how we get diseases, and that's called free radicals. And then this pathway upregulates or turns on the body's ability to make more ATP to give us more energy. So they're two different identities. Is that correct?
Right, but they are intertwined. You know, like I said before, without NRF2, we would die because our mitochondria would kill us.
Gotcha. All right.
Yes,
so
we need
all I
those
can
two.
say, folks, is, you know, from my own testimony, you know, when I added this NAD product, that, you know, and Dr. Goodman is going to be talking about this in a few minutes. It took me to a whole nother level. And that is just mental acuity, mental alertness, recovery. I was sharing a story with a bunch of people on how I felt. And the best way I could describe it is this. A lot of you who know who I am, I love to surf. And I'm on the East Coast in northern Florida, and the waves are normally 2 to 3 foot on average. I can be out in the water for 3 or 4 hours, sun beating down on me, get back home, get a full belly of food, take a hot shower. I need a nap for about an hour, hour and a half. Well, the second day I was on this new product, I was in Nicaragua surfing waves 3 times the size what I'm used to in Northern Florida, out for a lot longer than 3 or 4 hours in the Nicaraguan sun, and I didn't need a nap. So I cannot wait for Dr. Neil Goodman to walk all of us through why, I felt the way that I did being on all 3 of these products. So Dr. Goodman, just kind of help everybody understand, what is NAD?
All right, thanks, Gabe. To sum it up, we're talking about these 3 theories of aging. We have the NRF2 theory of aging, which is based on oxidative stress, like you guys mentioned. And NRF1 has to do with mitochondrial activity and metabolism, revving up our metabolism. The 2 need each other, but NAD is very curious. Up to this point, a lot of research has been trying to find out and untangle this 3rd theory of aging, which is called the sirtuin or NAD theory. And the way they got to it is they realized that when people would try to calorie restrict, they were able to increase a protein in their body called a sirtuin. And a sirtuin is a protein that's coded for by our DNA, both in the cytoplasm and in the nucleus and around the mitochondrial area. And it is responsible for protecting our dormant DNA. But in order for it to function, it requires this molecule called NAD, which is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. Big word, but essentially it's necessary in every single biochemical reaction that takes place in the body. And without it, if you didn't have NAD, you'd be dead in 30 seconds. You need to have it everywhere. So our body makes it, but they found that when people would essentially starve themselves, severely calorie restrict themselves, that they could increase their sirtuin levels and hence their NAD by as much as 94%. So up to this point, every single biochemistry and wellness company has been trying to find a way to increase NAD. And the way that they got around it is they would just try to give you some of the things that were precursors for NAD, like niacin, for example, is part of the contribution towards the N. If they figured if they could give you the products that go to make NAD, then maybe it would increase it. Well, they did. They increased it by 2%. Not 94%, which is what you do when you essentially calorie restrict for an extended period of time, but only 2%, but it's something. Well, LifeVantage managed to crack this code, and they came out with a product, an NAD synergizer, that's actually able to increase NAD and sirtuins by a whopping 100%, and you don't have to starve yourself to do it. And the thing about it is that when that's done, NAD, you can see the tangle of these circles above, it affects both NRF1 and NRF2 as a contribution and actually increases their activity as well. So let me just show you what that looks like. I'm going to go back to this other slide, but let me just hit this. So if we took the NRF1 gene and we exposed it to both NAD and NRF2 and NRF1, NRF1 is increased by 38%. One of the genes of NRF1 is increased by 38%, and PGC1 alpha, which is something that increases the number of mitochondria, was increased by 69%. Now that's NRF1 gene being affected by the presence of all 3, NAD, NRF2, and NRF1. Now get a look at this. This is where you really see synergy. If you add the NAD molecule, the whole tri-synergizer thing, to the NRF2 gene that we were trying to upregulate with just using Protandim NRF2, it increases 83%. And that was originally 40% increase to 78%. So 40% increase with just NRF2 alone. And now you add the tri-synergizer and it's 83%. But look at this one. NOX1, which is one of the genes that is responsible for our inflammatory response, increased 1,563%. This was completely unexpected. We had no idea. These numbers were just released this past weekend, and it's got the entire biohacking crowd just, gaga over this whole thing. Now let's look at what NAD does. If we have NAD, look at the NAD genes, of which there's 2 that are studied here in these studies, NAMPT, was increased 967%. That means it went up from 12% with just use of Protandim NAD to from 12% to 128% using all three. That's an increase of 967%. And lastly, look at the other NAD gene, NMNAT1, 1,792%. That's the central enzyme responsible for NAD synthesis. Essentially what this means is that if you were to take any one of these NAD synergizers, NRF2 synergizer, NRF1 synergizer, and use them individually, yes, they do increase their respective genetic expression of the gene that they're targeted against. But when you put them all together as a tri-synergizer pack, look at the impact. We're talking 1,563% in the case of the NRF2 gene and 1,792% in the case of the NAD gene. That means increased energy, increased efficiency of the NRF2 and NRF1 processes, more mitochondrial energy, more ability to get rid of toxins and toxic waste, and everybody is absolutely feeling this. We know that within 24 hours of taking NAD, the NAD synergizer, that sirtuin and NAD levels are increased by 100% within 24 hours. And this is something that everybody feels. So can you imagine how this affects the entire complex of all three of these synergizers?
So what I want everyone to understand is each one of these three products, folks, it's the synergy of those ingredients that really makes that product outstanding. And what Dr. Goodman was saying was taking all three of these numbers are off the Richter scale, so to speak. Dr. Goodman, is that the reason why my mental alertness and acuity and recovery, and I sometimes I gotta just kind of step out of my shoes and says, wow. I mean,
all I can say is, oh my God, yes. I think everybody is seeing this. We had a number of people who were at the Long Island National Elite Academy for LifeVantage this weekend.
Long Beach.
This new product was released, and everyone got a chance to take it and try it. And the mental alertness, the lack of fatigue, the resilience to travel, you know, when you go on an airplane and you have this terrible jet lag, nobody was experiencing jet lag. They were like ready to get up and do some more. And, you know, you hated for 11 o'clock to come by because you still had a lot to do. But it's not like an uncomfortable kind of energy where like you feel like you're buzzing from too many cups of coffee. This was a very calm energy that you just felt like you could do anything, accomplish anything, incredible resistance to exercise, because really every single metabolic process in your body is working at top efficiency. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, good point. That's what I want everyone to understand that have yet to take, you know, this product or these products is it's not a nervousness or like a jitter, you know, that you kind of get if you drink too much coffee. You know, it's an overwhelming, I got to step out of my shoes and says, my goodness, it's nearly 10 o'clock on the East Coast right now. And I feel great. I'm not even tired. So that's something that I think each and every person that's on this webinar needs to understand, that taking these three products increases the synergy thousands of %. And I think that's fascinating. Now,
Dave, you realize that LifeVantage just cracked the aging code? I mean, they cracked it 3 times. Nobody else has done this. This is the only company. I mean, we're not just adding NAD to our systems. We are actually producing it from our own cells to the tune of these incredible percentages. This has never been done before.
Now, I know there's 60,000 studies out there on NAD, and I know there's there's thousands of products out there that are NAD. Help everyone understand, Dr. Goodman, what separates LifeVantage's NAD from all the other NADs out there?
Well, I think the point is that we are actually producing it from within our cells because we've isolated those natural organic materials that come from nature that in a synergistic combination, which is our NAD synergizer, actually turns on the genes that are responsible for our bodies making NAD, as opposed to putting NAD into our bodies from chemicals that go to make the molecule NAD. In other words, we've got what we need. We're having every cell in the body generate it itself. And that's such an incredibly more efficient mechanism and a safer mechanism, because now you don't have to do an IV infusion. Up to this point, that's essentially how you did it. You would get an IV in your arm and they would give you NAD for $150 in your arm for 30 minutes, and when you walk out and you'd say, hey, I have a lot more energy today, and you'd go back tomorrow and do the same thing. In this instance, you're making it yourself.
So folks, as I mentioned, our first product, I think the analogy that I said is taking antioxidants are going to be a thing of the past because our Protandim NRF2 makes them. Same thing. Everyone else is taking NAD. We're making NAD, and it's more efficient, it's safer, and it's a better tool. Getting your own body, it's called nutrigenomics, and that's what separates this company, LifeVantage, from everyone else. And that's the opportunity. Any parting words from Dr. Viglione or Dr. Sean McKee, or are you, Dr. Goodman?
I just want to give a personal note. Gabe, he gave you his history about him being a personal trainer and coach. And a year ago in September, he had me start doing this incredible amount of workouts with weights. And I actually had to cut back because I was sore all the time. I mean, I take more Nerf too. I was still sore. And I have been on this product now a little over 2 months, and I'm not sore anymore. And I went back up to, basically, I did 150 reps of chest press today. And I worked out my legs the same way. I worked out my triceps. I'm not sore and I'm not tired. This stuff is amazing.
Dr. Goodman, we just had a person that just threw out a question. Any contraindications on NAD?
I can't think of any contraindications. The materials that are in the NAD synergizer are natural and in very small amounts, just very similar to the way that NRF2 synergizer and NRF1 synergizer are put together. Some of the ingredients include olive leaf extract. I believe it also contains, help me with this, Deb.
Wasabi,
japonica, rhizome. And there are a couple of, and cuprous niacin right.
That's the one thing. The teocrine is similar to caffeine as far as the benefits, but without the side effects or the habituation. Like my nurse today took his first dose, and he's a bit sensitive to our fat burn, tends to get palpitations. He was buzzing today. He was so funny. And I said, are you having any side effects? He just says, my ears are hot. And I said, well, how do you feel? You're going to take them both tomorrow? Oh, yeah.
You don't want to not take this once you've realized what you're capable of doing. And the important thing, again, is we're not talking about just like drinking a Red Bull here. That is not what NAD Synergizer is doing. This is not getting or giving you extrinsic energy from a chemical drug. It's not an Adderall or a Ritalin type of feeling. What it is that you are biochemically telling your genes to turn on the very thing that powers the cell and helps metabolism and mitochondria do their job and helps these other survival genes, NRF2 and NRF1, maximize their efficiency. And you're doing it from your own resources. You're not adding anything else to the system. You're just knocking on the cell and saying, hey, turn on this NAD process and get it revved up. And that's exactly what it does.
Dr. Goodman, I've been on this product since third week of July, and when I got on the product, I was told to take it first thing in the morning. Is that what you would recommend to everyone else? I've got some questions out there.
Certainly. Well, I think that all of these, given that you're taking these, first of all, you want them to work together. And I typically will take my NRF2 and NRF1 in the morning, along with my other Vitality Stack products. So it makes
Well,
absolutely
hopefully,
perfect sense.
I just went dead in one computer. Thank goodness I had another computer up. I tell you what, we've got nearly 500 people, on this webinar, and I can't think of a worse time from a technology standpoint that we've had in the last 3 years. So it is what it is. So I'm not sure, Dr. Goodman, if you heard my question. When's the best time to take NAD?
Yeah, I heard, Gabe. As I said, I take the NRF2 first of all and the NRF1 in the morning. So it makes absolute perfect sense that you would want to take your NAD at the same time. And so typically I add that to my Vitality stack, which includes those first two in the morning with food. It's good to have a little food on your stomach so all of them will be absorbed. And I think that's the best time to take it. Rather than taking it in the evening, I would not recommend. I think that you want to maximize your period of time of alertness and awakeness, and that's going to be as a daytime dose.
Yeah, but you know what? For those of us who do intermittent fasting, it is okay to take on an empty stomach. I do. I take it first thing in the morning before I go work out without food, and I have immense benefits from that. And I take my NRF2 later with food. So you just play with it, take lots of water if you're just starting it, just like everything else. If you're sensitive, start with 1 in the morning and then maybe 1 later in the morning toward noontime, just to start slowly. But if you're not super sensitive, start with 2.
And for those of you that might want to know, my stomach seems to be like a rock gut. I take my products in the morning after I have a black cup of coffee. So I'm still in a fasting state. And then I go work out, and I'm doing, in high intensity training on an, anaerobic side. And I'm doing 45 minutes of cardiovascular exercise after my anaerobic. When I come back home is when I eat breakfast, and I haven't had any issues at all by taking these products early in the morning. So if that was a question for some of you, hopefully, I've been able to address. Yes.
I was really just stating what the recommendations were as are put out from LifeVantage, but my actual own practical experience is that I actually like coffee a lot. And when I wake up in the morning, I take my Vitality stack, my NAD, NRF2, NRF1, and probiotics with a couple of cups of coffee, because that's just my routine. And I don't typically eat breakfast as a typical breakfast. So essentially, it's all going into an empty stomach. I've had absolutely no gastritis, no stomach issues, no bad burps, no nausea, nothing. And then when I get a chance to have breakfast, then I will.
Yeah, same with me. Well, I know that we've had a couple of glitches here, folks. I know it's getting late. I'm just going to kind of close with all of you that are on this webinar tonight, that are guests, that are hearing this science for the very first time. Just please get with the person who invited you, and let them walk you through who is LifeVantage. I mean, it's a very, very unique story in this industry. LifeVantage back in 2003 was a biotech company. It was actually called Lifeline Therapeutics. All of us could have bought our flagship product, Protandim NRF2, in a health food store, specifically GNC's. And it failed. And no disrespect to people who work in a GNC store, but they could not convey to you what you've learned from these incredible 3 doctors. Some of the people who actually happened to find that bottle of Protandim under anti-aging, when they read the bottle and the bottle stated, reduces oxidative stress by 40% in 30 days, they put it back on the shelf because they thought oxidative stress was all about emotional stress. Folks, it has nothing to do with emotional stress. It's how and why we age on a cellular level, and a major contributing factor of how we get diseases. It's that simple. And it failed. Stock dropped all the way down to 7 cents. The company was 1 signature away from going belly up. Thank goodness they decided to consult with some consultants, and they said, come on, folks, this is an easy fix. Take it out of the retail world. This is too complicated. It just needs a story. It's word of mouth. I mean, think about this, folks. For those of you that are on this webinar, if you own your own business, your business has been successful because of relationships, word of mouth, credibility. And that's how this company was put on the map. It's what Dr. Goodman and Dr. Viglione and Dr. McKee was sharing with you. Stories sell. So now this company, 10 years later, is creeping right just under $250 million in revenue. When I started with the company back in 2009, there was only that one product. Now we have categories of NRF2 products. So get with the person who invited you, and they'll share the different products outside of our Tri-Synergizer, what we were covering tonight. We were only in one country. Folks, we're getting ready to open up our 24th country in November, and that's New Zealand. So if you read the pro forma of this publicly traded company, we're projected to be in over 100 markets. And right now we're only in 24. So from an opportunity standpoint, if you're looking for something and you're just not quite sure what you're looking for, again, get with that person who invited you and ask them, hey, what is this all about? Because I tell you what, I feel so honored and privileged to be a part of this new paradigm in health called nutrigenomics. And in my own personal opinion, I personally think every household in this country in the next few years is going to know what nutrigenomics is going to know what the activation of pathways are and what biohacking is all about. And we're first. So just because of the time constraints, I'm not going to go into what's in it for you tonight. So again, I can't say this enough. Big apologies to the doctors. I know they're perfectionists. I wanted to stream this live on Facebook and Zoom, and I'm challenged, okay? So I apologize for that, docs. I think we made a nice little rebound. So I want to apologize to everybody out there. We have nearly 500 people on this webinar. You need to take a hard look at this company and do what these doctors did and do what I did. We all tried to find a reason not to be a part of it, and we couldn't. And this company has underpromised and over-delivered for the last 10 years. And all of us that are on tonight, the docs and myself specifically, is we are so excited of what we just learned from Long Beach, California this past weekend on the synergy of this Tri-Synergizer. So I'm crossing my fingers. I know legal's looking at this. We're trying to patent all three of these things together, and that's something that we can be talking about in the future. And that's the direction that this company is going in. So with that said, Dr. Goodman, Dr. Viglione, Dr. McKee, thank you so much for everything that you do for this company. You add so much value to LifeVantage. I am honored and privileged just to be able to call you business partners. And thank you for everything that you do outside of LifeVantage.
Thanks so much, Gabe.
Welcome.
And with that said, folks, thank you so much for being on tonight. Again, folks, at the very least, you want to try this Tri-Synergizer. I tell you what, you'll be yanking on the person who told you about this shirt sleeve, like, oh my God, and you'll be sharing it with your family like we're doing with our family. So with that said, my name is Gabe Pearson. We will be back next Monday night, 9 p.m., hopefully no glitches, and sharing this incredible opportunity, LifeVantage, with all of you. Everyone have a great night. We'll see you next week.